Thanks for joining me today, Laurie Goldman, on For the Sake of the Argument. Today's guest is House District Rep Laurie Pohutsky, 17th District. You'll have to watch the episode to see what that covers. But she talks a lot, and I have to say very bravely, very openly, about things that are kind of going wrong in our party, with our electeds, with our system of government. And it takes the courage of someone like a Laurie Pohutsky. I hope we get more in the future. Please have your friends watch For the Sake of the Argument. Keep tuning in. You can check us out on all social media. Good morning, Laurie Pohutsky, and welcome to For the Sake of the Argument.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so excited to have you again because you and I have known each other a while. We were in a movement politics class through Michigan United like 8 years ago, or maybe more. I don't
maybe.
It's been a long time, but you were always somebody that I looked up to because you were curious. You knew where you wanted to be and what you wanted to do. You ran for House. Did you win your first race?
I did. I was in a really tough primary. We pulled through that with a pretty wide margin, and then we squeaked by in the general with 0.4%.
So as Michigan State Representative in House District 17, you were incredibly vocal and supportive of the Reproductive Freedom Act for All ballot initiative back in 22. Mm-hmm. Despite this passing, well, again, we don't learn our lessons. We said, phew, that's done. Now we've seen several Planned Parenthood clinics closing in Michigan in recent weeks, which I think is just criminal. Governor Whitmer has blamed the closing of these Planned Parenthood clinics on the Trump budget cuts. But who do you think holds responsibility for this?
So despite the fact that we enshrined the right to reproductive freedom in our Constitution, that doesn't ensure access. So following that ballot initiative, we passed the Reproductive Health Act to make sure that there were fewer barriers for people to access care across the state. But part of that access is also funding. And we know that Republicans at the national level will stop at nothing to try and defund Planned Parenthood. So those budget cuts have hit Planned Parenthood incredibly hard, and that does lie at the feet of Republicans in D.C. However, a number of Democratic governors, including some from the Midwest, J.B. Pritzker is a really obvious example, have worked to backfill those dollars to ensure that Planned Parenthood can continue to operate in those states. Despite repeated pleas to assist in that manner here, Governor Whitmer declined to do so.
Do you think Planned Parenthood was a pawn in negotiations with Trump, a sacrificial lamb?
I think that there were things that the governor wanted, and she was willing to use Planned Parenthood as a pawn in those, yes.
Well, now that we're where we're at, what can be done to ensure funding for reproductive rights now that this is happening?
Yeah, these cuts have been in an effort for Planned Parenthood to stave off the current attacks, right? So conserving resources where they can, trying to be as smart as they can about the funding that they do have so that they can weather the storm. So once we're through that, now that we are looking towards next year and hopefully having a Democratic trifecta, we need to make sure that we have dedicated funding for reproductive health centers, including Planned Parenthood, so that they can weather these ongoing federal attacks that we know aren't going to let up.
Yeah, because honestly, if somebody even wants female health care, not necessarily having an abortion or prenatal care, and they don't have insurance or they can't afford doctor visits, I mean, we don't think about this. Where do they go?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they don't go anywhere. Or if they want to terminate a pregnancy for whatever reason, maybe they have to throw themselves down a flight of stairs. I mean, this is just terrifying. I have 3 daughters. I want them to have options.
Yeah, exactly.
For their body, their choice.
You know, 3 of the clinics that closed, one of them was in my district in Livonia, and the other was in Lansing, which is where I went for healthcare when I was in college. Like you said, this was pre-ACA. I did not have insurance. I was able to get my birth control at little to no cost. I was able to get preventative screenings. to make sure that I was healthy as a young woman. I was able to get education there about my own body in a way that I didn't necessarily get in high school. So it's a deeply personal thing to see those clinics that I relied on as a young woman close and know that people are not going to have those same options going forward.
Very sad. This is why it's important who we elect.
It is.
Speaking of Governor Whitmer again, recently 9 bills, after a long time, made it to her desk that she vetoed. Can you explain to our listeners what those bills were and what took so long for them to make it to her desk? And why, in God's name, did Governor Whitmer veto all 9 of them?
Yeah. So some of those bills were pretty non-controversial, in all honesty. They were so mundane that I struggle to remember what all of them did. There were 3 in particular that seemed to garner a fair amount of attention. One of them would have allowed the Metro Detroit area to put a question on the ballot around funding for things like the Charles H. Wright Museum, I believe the Holocaust Museum, things like that. Like fund them in the same way that we fund the DIA, the zoo, things like that. Another one would have dealt with the proportion of the healthcare premiums that schools would have paid for public school teachers and some other state employees. And the third would have brought corrections workers into the state pension system. We have a massive corrections officer shortage. It's really a huge problem in our prisons, and that would have gone a long way in helping that. Those bills passed in the 2024 session during lame duck. They should have been presented either by the end of 2024, the beginning of 2025. For whatever reason, they were not. That resulted in litigation between the House and the Senate. The Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, said he didn't need to present them. The Senate said that he did. I think it was pretty cut and dry. The courts agreed. This stretched on for about a year and a half. Ultimately, the Supreme Court said they were not going to hear the case, but they agreed with the lower court that those bills needed to be presented. They were. Within a matter of hours, the governor vetoed them. She put forth a statement saying that because so much time had passed and, enactment dates and multiple budgets had already passed and it just would have been a disaster. And that's not true. These things happen, not terribly infrequently. There was another bill that she signed around a sentencing commission that established that in the state. Every single enactment date in that bill had already passed by the time it was signed into law. The world did not, come screeching to a halt. It was enacted and people made do with what they could given the dates that had already passed. She did not want to sign those bills, particularly those 3, possibly some of the other ones, but particularly those 3, for a variety of reasons, maybe because of the price tag associated with them. I have less understanding less of a idea around the one that would have put questions on the ballot. That seems like a pretty straightforward thing. Just let municipalities decide. But I think it could have had something to do with the price tag attached to those things.
Who's responsible for that price tag in those instances, those examples you just gave? All right, the Prison Guard Association. All right, where would that money come from? Now, is this a government-funded?
It is. It would put them into the state pension plan, similarly as the state police and things like that.
So they would have to come up with additional monies that they hadn't previously budgeted for. Mm-hmm. But would this be the first time in the history of this organization that this ever happened?
It would not. These things happen pretty regularly. And it's also a matter, it's the same conversation we have with any budget, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, when you look at what is happening, just if we look through the context of that bill, so we have a huge shortage. It is resulting in unsafe conditions for both the existing corrections officers and staff and the people who are incarcerated. And it is resulting in people not being eligible for parole when they otherwise would be because they don't have the staff to offer the programming that is required. So now we are continuing to pay to have people incarcerated well after they should already be out of prison. There's a price tag attached to that. In some cases, we are unable to get people to health care when they have it. We've seen 5 deaths at Women's Huron Valley this year, 3 of them totally unexpected. And at least 2 of them, there are reports from the women who are inside that they were attempting to get health care for some of those women, and there were not sufficient staff to get the people who needed healthcare down to the healthcare facility. So we are likely looking at litigation that the state will have to pay out there. We are going to pay this money one way or another.
Right. And have a lesser system because of it.
Exactly.
Don't they raid the education budget when they need to for other things that have nothing to do with education?
Not terribly infrequently, yes, that has absolutely happened. And on top of it, we are also paying for higher ed out of our K-12 budget, which is not how that was designed.
Yeah.
Higher ed is very, very important. I'm not negating that. But those K-12 dollars are really, really precious. And if you don't set children up for success in K through 12, you're not going to be setting them up for success in higher education either. So, yes, the conversation about there being a price tag, well, I think that is likely what the issue was. And I will, forgive my tinfoil hat here. Although I have a pretty solid basis for it, I don't think the governor ever wanted those bills to be presented to begin with. I think that this was a plan on her part, because if they had been presented in 24 or the beginning of 25, she would have either had to sign them, which she didn't want to do, or she would have had to veto them on their merits, which was politically untenable.
Was this during lame duck
It
when
was.
the House Speaker did not present with the bills?
So they were passed during lame duck. The process of getting everything enrolled sometimes takes time. It's not unusual for it to go into 2025. It is unheard of for a speaker to decide to just withhold some of those bills. There's no legal basis for that. That's what the courts ultimately said. There is a constitutional obligation. There is an obligation in Masons, which is the rules that we follow in the House, and the House rules also make the obligation very clear.
Well, I'm curious. The reason all this stuff can happen is because people like me, people that vote, the people that don't vote, whatever, we are ignorant. We don't understand how things work. We assume that the people we elect to office, good, bad, otherwise, Republican, Democrat, Independent, are going to go and do their jobs. Maybe not perfectly, but they're going to go and do their jobs. But then something like this happens to our Democratic two-term governor, and from vetoing these bills, which everyone that I've read said were good, common sense bills, to allowing the Planned Parenthood funding to go away, and this data center debacle. Mm-hmm. What is going on? Why would Governor Whitmer, and don't forget, Line 5 and that, what is that called, that tunnel?
The Line 5 tunnel, the permits that were approved.
Yeah. What is going on? What is the motivation to do this?
I don't know. I mean, there's all kinds of rumors and speculation out there, but I really don't know. I think that even if this was a case of someone trying to position themselves for higher office, you don't do that by stabbing your allies in the back.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. It's perplexing to me.
Agreed.
I don't know. We feel a little let down. Let's just say that. Yeah. So on to good news. In my mind, Michigan saw some big progressive upsets last week. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have their hair on fire, but the people voted, the people spoke, including Abdul El-Sayed, Will Lawrence, Donovan McKinney, and Chris Gilmer-Hill. Are these, and I have to give a shout out to my girl downriver, Joanna Whaley, won her House seat, first transgender House rep. So I'm thrilled. Are these flukes, or are progressives having their moment? I don't even want to say having their moment. Are we turning the page on being safe and playing by very narrow rules?
I think that's it. There are enough people who have stated very clearly that they're tired of being presented with, like the least bad of two options. And I think that there are candidates out there who are speaking to their values and fighting for the things that matter to people and will make their lives better. And on the part of the voters, I think that they have realized it's not enough to just post on social media or, people really came out and worked for these candidates. They committed their time and their effort, and in some cases their money. They brought other people to vote. So I do think that we are turning the page. I think that progressives have really found their footing, and I'm hoping that other folks catch up.
I hope so, too. The primaries were more brutal than any I've ever experienced in the last 10 years since I woke up and cared. Do you think Democrats will manage to unite and come together against Republicans for the general?
I think so. I think it's going to involve a lot of people just kind of putting hurt feelings behind them. And some people who had positive outcomes in the primary, just being the bigger person. It's not about winning. It's not about I told you so's. It's about looking towards November and making sure that we can coalesce behind our candidates and be successful. It's not a moment for trying to rub anything in anyone's face, and it's not a time to, be upset and hold grudges.
It's not sports teams, right? We're not picking our dream teams. These are people running for office that, I think have more of our views, hold more of our views than the other side does.
Yeah.
And for people, I see it all over social media, and it's their right for them to say they're not going to vote or they're going to vote Republican. Their choice, their right.
Yeah.
But my right to scratch my head and wonder why.
Right.
Because I don't think Mike Rogers is going to give a fuck about what your beliefs and your ideals are coming from the right and the Trump-pleasing right.
Exactly.
And, I understand what people's motivations are in a lot of these races, but you might get a sliver of what you want, but I think you're going to get more of what you don't.
Yeah.
So what's giving you hope for Michigan in the future?
I am, like you just said, I'm really excited about all the progressive wins that we had. That makes me feel more hopeful than I felt in quite some time. I also think that we're going to have a trifecta again. And I think that we learned a lot from the last one. Turns out the Republicans did not leave us an instruction manual for how to run the state. So there were some growing pains, and I think that there were some lessons learned. Personally, I ran because I was concerned about reproductive rights, and I am very, very fortunate. A lot of the things that made me run, I was able to change. So I was a sponsor of the Reproductive Health Act. I was the sponsor of the repeal of the criminal abortion ban. But like we already said, just doing those things does not secure reproductive rights. It's something we're going to have to keep fighting for at least the rest of my life, probably beyond that. So there's additional things that we need to do, create shield laws to protect people who may be having to come from out of state to receive reproductive or gender affirming care.
So what would that do if somebody lives, let's say, in Texas and they can't have any of that there? They drive to Michigan. Mm-hmm. And what does a shield law do?
It protects providers who would be issuing or providing care for them here. But
that's weird. Why would somebody coming to Michigan where something is legal, why would the provider get in trouble or the person getting the care? Because their mommy and daddy are back in Texas? That's their state and they have to do everything the state says?
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the really heinous piece of overturning Roe and leaving a patchwork of state laws. Your rights here are not your rights on the other side of a state boundary. And a lot of it is left up to the prosecutor or the legislature in another state that you are probably going to have to return back to. It's created a huge nightmare for people who are just trying to exercise bodily autonomy and in some cases trying to save their own lives. I mean, women are dying. People are dying. And I think you and I and most of the people watching know that was by design. This isn't about the sanctity of life or protecting a fetus. It's about controlling people.
That's right. And controlling women primarily.
Exactly. And the fact that we have these fucking flock cameras up that are now being utilized by police who are just buying access. It doesn't even require a warrant. They're just buying access to the data. Another thing that happened is the governor authorized the Michigan Department of Transportation to cooperate with feds and use traffic cameras and license plate readers for whatever they want as well.
All right. Was that another negotiation with Trump? Because why would you give that? Why would you allow that? What is gotten in return? What have we gotten anything in return from this cooperation with this White House?
I don't know what the deal is. I'm certainly not. She certainly hasn't talked to me anymore, and it's not like she was ever really, communicating her innermost thoughts to me anyway. But this has been my whole point, and I'm sure it's come across as catty or whatever. But I cannot reconcile someone who allegedly fought like hell for reproductive rights turning over data that we know is being used to prosecute women who are seeking abortion care from other states. I don't know how you put your head down on the pillow at night. So continuing to fight for reproductive rights and secure those and preserve access is going to be really high up on my list because that work is not done. Additionally, we talked a little bit about the crisis in our prison systems. That's something that I've been really, really in tune with. It started because of outreach from Women's Huron Valley. The women were being recorded during strip searches. They were being recorded while giving birth. They were being recorded during doctor's exams.
What was the purpose? What is the purpose of having a video of a strip search or giving birth?
It's dehumanizing.
What do they do? What do they do with these? Where do they house them? What's their purpose that they profess their purpose is?
That was something that was asked during an oversight hearing. I did not get a very good answer. And when I originally heard about this and started reaching out to different executive offices about this is a problem, this is going to result in litigation, which it has. I didn't get an answer as to why. I was just told that the process had changed and they stopped recording the strip searches, but the recording of people's doctor's appointments didn't stop until earlier this year.
Wow. What about HIPAA? My God, you can't call for your own medical record until they know it's you for sure and you've given a pint of blood to prove it.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the thing. There's a lot of women who reach out because they're not, and it's not just women. I've heard from the men's facilities too. This is not a unique issue just to Women's Huron Valley. But when folks reach out saying, my medication has been discontinued and I don't know why, or I need this surgery, or I have a tooth that needed to be pulled for 6 months, and I reach out, rightfully so, there's only so much that can be communicated with me because I am not that person.
Right.
I don't have rights to their health information, and that's appropriate. But to your point, what is the justification for shackling a woman and recording her giving birth? What does that do for her rights? What are you benefiting from? What are you afraid of?
I don't know. In the whole shackling of a woman while giving birth, I think the trauma goes into the womb. And this is so horrible. Who's in charge of our prisons? I know I'm getting off track, but who's the boss of the whole Michigan prison system? Who's at the top?
Director Heidi Washington. She was a Snyder appointee. She was the only one who was held over for the Whitmer administration.
All right. And so who's Heidi's boss? Is the governor her boss? So the governor could step in and tell Heidi, no, Heidi, no good anymore.
She could.
Okay, but didn't.
She did not.
I don't like this. When you're sitting in Lansing and you've got all of your co-legislators there, Republicans, Democrats, Democratic centrists, I guess that's a new thing, and the cursed, very feared left, when you're all there in the right wing and the regular Republicans, when you're all there, do you talk about this? When people aren't being recorded, do they say that, on all of these different fronts, they're happy with all the things that go on?
No, definitely not. And I think that, it's a fine line to walk because in a lot of cases, the Republicans just look at this as, well, we have a Democratic governor, so this is just a chance to beat up on Democrats. The director of our corrections system was appointed by a Republican. And frankly, I don't care what party it is. This is gross. This is inhumane. People are dying of dental abscesses where the infection spreads to their heart. Men are dying of dehydration because they're locked up in segregation and forgotten about. So it's not a matter of a partisan, it's not a partisan issue, but my Democratic colleagues are equally horrified. Some of them have been willing to speak up. Some of them have not, but I don't think that there's anybody who thinks that this is defensible in the legislature, at least.
I think that's the one criterion we all have to have, no matter what party, no matter which way you left, right, middle. Elect motherfuckers that are willing to speak up. And Laurie Pohutsky, House District 17, that is you. And that has been you since I met you almost 10 years ago.
I know, yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
How can we help you? Tell our audience how we can help support your work, support your voice, support the truth that you bring on behalf of all of us.
I mean, I am running for re-election, so if I am fortunate enough to be your representative, I would love to keep being your representative. We are helping out in other districts as well. So if you don't know who your rep is, or if you have a Republican rep and you want to help us flip the House, please reach out to me. I am very Googleable. I am on social media. And please uplift the work that I'm doing. I've been talking a lot about corrections. I've been, to your point, speaking out about disappointment with our current elected officials. And elevating is helpful. I would be lying if I said that there were not consequences to that, which is fine. I'm willing to take that. That's the
you don't
point.
get appointed to committees or something because you're not a
Not so
go
much-
along kind of girl.
Not so much that, but I mean, governor's not returning my calls these days, that's for sure. And that's fine. But being able to still get the message out there about the things that we're doing and underlining how important they are, even if not everyone who is elected agrees with me, is really, really important. I have yet to meet a single person who is not horrified about what's happening in these prisons. I have yet to meet a single person who is not incredibly disappointed or outright livid that Planned Parenthood has had to shut down 3 more clinics. So when you see someone talking about those things, uplift it. It really does help, and it helps steer the conversation in a way that I think more people agree with, but we might not have the bigger megaphone.
All right, sounds like a plan. And Laurie, spell your name.
Laurie, Laurie, Pohutsky, Pohutsky.
Right, that's not really the right way to spell Laurie, but it's yours, so I'll leave you at that.
I know.
Thanks for being here. I love you.
Thanks for having me. I love you back.
Of course.